Oh, hey. It's Noff and the Fluff is Raging. I wanted to talk just very, very briefly about movies that I saw over this year, particularly, films that I think should, you should go and seek out. Chances are you've already seen all of the films I'm going to be talking about because they're all quite popular, or at least were very well reviewed and very took a large place in the culture. And is this not in any particular order? I mean, I saw a lot of crap this year, obviously, but I also saw some things I really quite enjoyed. The Lego Movie really surprised me actually because I don't remember actually sitting, and watching a film and actually, really uproariously laughing and applauding, which I did throughout the Lego Movie. Chances are, if you're watching this, of course, you've already seen the Lego Movie, and you don't need me to tell you how funny it is. And I would imagine it's going to show up on pretty much everyone's top 10 for 2014 films. Um, but I think it's wonderful, and I'm very very happy to hear the news I heard just a while ago that they're planning a sequel focusing on the Batman character, of course, which is voiced by Will Arnett in this fantastic parody of Christian Bale in very shouty Batman, basically. And it's, that was very good, but it was a great, big, colorful, fast moving, funny, very unpatronizing film for a kids' film. And with a great script, a couple of great songs, one of which probably you've heard way too much. Um, but it also has to be a cinematic first, and being the only film, the only family film I can ever recall uh, that has that has a pirate gay sex joke in it. Um, but apart from that, that was one that I think everyone should look to. Um, Cronenberg uh, has made an astonishing sort of Hollywood satire in very kind of typically Cronenberg weirdness, um, called Maps of the Stars, and it's a very odd film, needless to say, because it's a Cronenberg film. It's very funny, very bleakly, blackly funny, and it's a really sort of pretty harsh view of what Hollywood movie stars are like in terms of their excesses and their egos and their general narcissism. And it's got a fantastic cast, and Julianne Moore, I would imagine, uh, will be a very strong contender for Best Supporting Actress for what she does in this film. It is the kind of performance that an actress of her age gives that generally gets very kind of backhanded compliments by critics, where they say it's a very brave performance. Um, it may be, she may be the first person to win an Oscar for basically, appearing not just naked, but naked, half naked, and constipated on the toilet. Um, it's a very odd film. It's got all kinds of like sort of strange psychic weirdness going on. In some ways, it's kind of like a David Lynch movie, and in some ways, it's kind of like The Player. It's like The Player on acid, or The Player on crystal meth or something. It's a strange but very funny film with a real interesting cast and everyone kind of working at the top of their game. And in some ways, it's a very typically Cronenberg film, and in other ways, it's like nothing else he's done. It's kind of like David Lynch, more than Cronenberg necessarily. That was one that I think, kind of didn't, probably won't make many people's top 10, but I think perhaps it should. One that definitely should make everyone's top 10 of this year is Under the Skin. Now, Under the Skin is either going to be basically seen as I see it, as a basically vitally important film about humanity, or it's going to be seen as a pretentious piece of shit. Now, this is basically a film that you either love or you hate. So I'm reluctant to sort of recommend it, without the warning or the caveat that chances are that if you see it, uh, depending upon who you are, you may just simply think it's complete, boring, pretentious bollocks. But I think it's a very very important film with an incredible look and an absolute standout. For me, the standout female performance of the year from Scarlett Johansson. It's first of all the best performance of her entire career, but it's also just an incredible performance by any actress in any year. And so for me, she's given the standout female performance for this year in this film, where basically she's an alien and she comes to Earth and she's dispatched to sort of find something out or find out something about humans. It's kind of a strange film because you don't really know what's going on, and I'm not really sure I even know what the film means. I don't really know what the film's about. I think the film is about what it means to be human, and I think what the film's about is what the importance of love, and what it's like to be somebody who is incapable of giving love, and what it's like to be a poor, unfortunate person who will never receive it. I think that's what the film is about, although it may be about something else completely. It's a very obscure film. There's very little dialogue. It's visually very striking. The sound design is incredible. It's visually very striking, and but like I say, there's very little dialogue, and Johansson doesn't look anything like you usually expect her to look. Um, and she spends most of the film driving around in this kind of white transit van around the mean streets of Glasgow, uh, picking up basically men, and then she sort of seduces them, or she sort of it's not quite clear what happens. She seduces them, and then she steps on this kind of weird black oily substance, and they follow her and they sink into it. And then what happens to them then after that, I can't even begin to explain. You simply have to watch the film. Um, but it has some incredible visual moments, and it has some incredible just general moments that need to be seen. And so for me, like I say, it's the female performance of the year, without a shadow of a doubt, from Johansson. And I wish she did stuff like this more often. I mean, I know that she does the Avengers stuff because she gets paid a lot of money, and I also saw this thing she did called Lucy, which is terrible. That's a Luke Besson. It's terrible. It's a dreadful film. But I wish she did more stuff like Under the Skin. So Under the Skin, I you need to see it, okay? But like I say, you need to see it with the caveat that you might hate it and you might think it's pretentious student, very studenty, pretentious bollocks. Uh, I don't think it is, but it's a film that you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate. Um, Another film, totally unlike Under the Skin, but having a very kind of commanding performance, and the standout male performance of the year for me, is by Tom Hardy in a film called Locke. Now, I just saw this film quite recently, and Locke's a one-man show. Locke is Tom Hardy in a car, driving on the motorway, talking on the telephone. And that's basically it. So, imagine being told, hey, do you want to go see a film where basically one man is in the car for the entire film? Like, there's no other setting other than just the interior of this car. And it's him on his own talking to people on the telephone. He doesn't even stop. Like, there's no hitchhikers, there's no sudden turns, there's no sudden shock moments. It's just him driving along. Now, what he's doing, like the world isn't going to end because of what's happening in this film. So the stakes are, low, but the stakes are very high in terms of his character and in terms of the people that he's speaking to on the telephone. And the story basically is that he's a foreman on a construction site, and the following day they're going to be pouring concrete for this huge big project. And basically he leaves the city and drives away. And as he drives away, he makes a few phone calls, one of which is to his boss to say, I'm not going to be there tomorrow. And of course, his boss freaks out because he has to be there because he's the guy in charge. And then you find out about 10 minutes, 10 minutes into the film, you find out why he's doing what he's doing. And I won't tell you; you have to simply watch it for yourself because I don't want to spoil anything. You find out what he's doing, and you also find out an awful lot about concrete when you watch this film. Concrete, of course, is used as a metaphor for a lot of different things in it. And much as a building needs, a good concrete foundation, the film really talks about, how much a life needs a good foundation. And that's all I'll say in terms of the plot. But Hardy, it's like astonishing performance. It also looks beautiful. It's basically him, basically lit by, the interior of the car, and then by the kind of, orangey, yellowish motorway headlights. And it all takes place at night. And the other thing about the film, just very quickly, is I don't know whose decision it was. I don't know if it was Hardy's decision or if it was the director's decision, but he's Welsh in the film. And I think that's actually kind of significant because underneath this beautiful, melodious, lilting tone that he has to his voice, I mean, it's very like Ivor the Engine, but underneath of that there's this kind of bedrock of anger and bitterness and resentment and stubbornness, kind of like this resolute um, um, aspect to it. So it's, he's Welsh in the same way that Anthony Hopkins is Welsh. He's Welsh in the same way that Richard Burton is Welsh. And if you look at, say, for instance, some of Hopkins's early performances, there were a couple of times there when you're watching him, he looks like he could go off any second. He could explode any minute. And there's something similar going on with Hardy's performance here. And so I do think it's significant that they've made the character a Welshman. And again, for me, standout male performance of the year. So Johansson in Under the Skin has given the performance of her career. And Tom Hardy, who is always watchable. I mean, like he was even good in The Dark Knight Rises, and that was a complete load of shite. But that he was mumbly as hell, but he was good. So he's always good, and he's always watchable, and that's more than the case here with Locke. So I'd recommend Locke for sure. I would recommend Under the Skin. But also Maps to the Stars and the Lego Movie. I also really enjoyed Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, which I finally got to see on DVD, and I actually watched it on a DVD double bill with his film from a couple of years ago, Moonrise Kingdom, which if you've not seen, you need to go and see. I mean, and the Grand Budapest Hotel just looks gorgeous and is very funny and charming and wry, and like a lot of Wes Anderson films, it's kind of meaningless and useless, but it's lovely to look at, and it's whimsical beyond belief. I think I actually preferred Moonrise Kingdom, but Grand Budapest Hotel certainly is a film well worth seeing, and it's got a great performance from Ralph Fiennes, and actually the incredible cast, but Ralph Fiennes in particular, who gives the central performance in the film, is very, very, very good in it. There were a few other films that I saw this year that were standouts for me, and if you can check out the blog, you can see different reviews that I put up of my kind of highlights of films that I saw this year, and you may have seen the other Fluffcast that I was talking about television. I think all in all, I probably saw more decent television this year than more decent films this year, and that may simply because we are living, of course, in the much discussed, far too much discussed golden age of television. But it was also because I didn't actually get to go to the cinema as often as I wanted to, and so a lot of the times I was stuck watching films on DVD. One of my greatest regrets from last year is I didn't get to see Gravity in the cinema, but I finally got to see it on DVD on the biggest TV I could find. When I'm sure I still didn't do it justice, but I still think it's a fantastic film. And if you've seen it on a cinema and you want to watch it again on the DVD or on the Blu-ray, make sure to watch the behind the scenes feature on the making of it, because the making of it's just remarkable, almost as remarkable as the film itself. So I'm probably not going to be fluffing again about movies. Well, maybe I might. So I'll be fluffing again after Christmas. about all kinds of shite. So until then, have a very happy Christmas and a very, very happy New Year. And you will catch me on the blog, The Fluff is Raging, ragingfluff.wordpress.com, or on Twitter @ragingfluff. And you can sometimes also find me at twoparagraphs.com, where I write all kinds of nonsense about arts and entertainment and whatnot. Okay, bye.